It's 6 p.m. in Dakar and Bamako, 7 p.m. in Abuja. Good evening and welcome to Newslink live on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM in Dakar, Senegal, around the world at wadr.org. We're also streaming on YouTube and on Facebook. Let's bring you the headlines. Ghana's government endorses major constitutional reform proposals, including a longer presidential limit.
The government has accepted a recommendation to extend the term of office of the president from 4 years to 5 years, with the term of parliament extended to correspond with this.
Also, Benin establishes a 105-member Senate comprising former heads of state to foster peace and social cohesion.
The Senate is tasked with helping regulate the country's political life and uphold democracy and peace.
Mali unveils new presidential aircraft nearly 2 years after militant attack, and Senegal adopts $11.5 billion health reform plan to expand universal health care. Stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Atewi Mvila with Newslink.
Thanks for staying with us. We start in Ghana, where the government has endorsed major constitutional reform proposals, including extending the presidential term of office from 4 to 5 years. The proposals are part of recommendations by the Constitutional Reform Committee. Now, other recommendations that have been endorsed by the government are the separation of the Attorney General's office from the Ministry of Justice and the rescheduling of general elections from December to November. However, the government says it will set the qualifying age to run for president from 40 years to 35 years instead of the 30 years proposed by the committee. Here's the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Dr. Dominic Ayine.
The government has accepted a recommendation to extend the term of office of the president from 4 years to 5 years, with the term of parliament extended to correspond with this. Our thinking is practical. Under the current 4-year cycle, the early months of every administration are consumed by transition matters, and the final year is largely consumed by elections. A 5-year term provides a more realistic time frame for the formulation, implementation, and assessment of government policy. Still on the presidency, the committee recommended that the minimum age of eligibility for election as president be reduced from 40 years, currently in the Constitution, to 30 years. The government has accepted this recommendation in principle, subject to one modification. The minimum age will be 35 years, not 30 years. And of course, the details of this will be fashioned out by the Constitutional Review Implementation Committee. The current threshold of 40 years excludes qualified citizens from seeking the highest office on the basis of an arbitrary age limit. 35 is consistent with a trend in modern democratic constitutions towards greater inclusivity of the youth, whilst ensuring that a candidate for the highest office has attained a measure of maturity and experience to handle that office.
That was Ghana's Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Dr. Dominic Ayine. We'll bring you analysis and what all of this means in our subsequent bulletins. Let's now go to Benin, which has officially inaugurated its Senate, marking a major milestone in the country's constitutional reform. The ceremony held this afternoon in the political capital, Porto Novo, brought together 24 ex-official senators, including former presidents of the Republic and former heads of key institutions. Senior political officials, government officials, and members of the diplomatic corps also attended the event. The Senate is expected to bring its legislative work in the coming days when all 105 senators will convene for the chamber's first sitting. Veronica Njai has the details.
The inaugural session was presided over by Elizabeth Pognon, the second oldest member of the chamber and former president of the Constitutional Court, in the absence of former President Nisofor Dieudonné Soglo, who was unable to attend due to ill health. Addressing the senators, Pognon described the Senate as a historic institution and urged its members to uphold the rule of law, strengthen democracy, promote national cohesion, and serve as a cornerstone of political stability.
The Senate is tasked with helping regulate the country's political life in order to safeguard and strengthen national unity, promote national development, defend the nation's territory, enhance public security, and uphold democracy and peace.
Only 23 of the Senate's 105 members attended the inauguration, with the full House expected to assemble when legislative business formally begins. Former Constitutional Court President Robert Dosso and Theodore Holo welcomed the creation of the Senate, saying the new chamber carries significant responsibility in strengthening Benin's democratic institutions and governance.
The men and women serving in this institution will carry out this responsibility with foresight, determination, wisdom, and a strong sense of balance. We will organize ourselves accordingly because our role is to work together, not to create conflict. Our mission is to help preserve peace.
In the days ahead, senators will adopt the Chamber's rules of procedure, elect the Senate President, and establish parliamentary committees before commencing legislative work. The launch of the Senate marks a significant milestone in Benin's political and institutional evolution, completing another phase of the country's constitutional reforms.
That was a report by Cotonou correspondent Aziz Adam Sule, presented by Veronique Njai. Let's now go to Mali, where the transitional government has unveiled a new €23 million presidential aircraft to strengthen the government's air transport capacity. The unveiling comes nearly 2 years after its previous plane was damaged by insurgents during an attack on Bamako's main military airport. Let's join Imo Edet for more.
Malian authorities have introduced a new Boeing 737 presidential command aircraft to support official travel by the country's top leaders and government delegations. The aircraft replaces the previous state plane, which was rendered unusable after an attack on Bamako's military airport in September 2024, claimed by the Group for the Support of Islam and Muslims, an al-Qaeda-linked armed group. The attack caused significant damage, including the destruction of one of the aircraft's engines. Officials say the new aircraft has undergone major upgrades, including modern navigation systems, a redesigned cabin and facilities for long-distance official missions. It has a range of about 11,500 kilometers, allowing it to operate international flights without refueling. The purchase, valued at 15.6 billion CFA francs, has already drawn attention over public spending priorities. Mali's finance minister said the state had recovered 6 billion CFA francs in insurance compensation for the damaged aircraft, while authorities are seeking to sell remaining parts and equipment to reduce the overall cost. The new presidential aircraft comes at a time when Mali continues to face security threats, with armed groups active in several parts of the country, while authorities seek to strengthen state institutions and maintain diplomatic engagement abroad.
That was Imo Edet reporting.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's now look at security. The Nigerian government is warning that fake news, misinformation, and hate speech are becoming dangerous weapons in the hands of criminal actors. Minister of Information and National Orientation Mohammed Idris says the spread of false information is fueling fear, deepening divisions, and threatening national security. He's urging the media and the public to verify all information before sharing it and to support efforts to combat disinformation. WADR's Yechenusa Setu in Abuja reports.
The minister made the remarks at the Southeast Regional Security Summit in Umuahia, Abia State, where government officials, security agencies, traditional rulers, religious leaders, and other stakeholders met to discuss solutions to the region's security challenges. Mohammed Idris says security can no longer be seen as the responsibility of government and security agencies alone, stressing that communities, traditional institutions, civil society, and the media all have critical roles to play in promoting peace and stability. He warns that misinformation and hate speech have become tools used by criminal elements to manipulate public opinion, spread panic, and weaken national cohesion. Meanwhile, a retired colonel, Frank Ikemenanwa, says the summit comes at a critical time.
Because for some time now, Southeast has been troubled by so many security challenges, ranging from kidnapping, herdsmen attack, and so many other things, even security forces themselves.
Participants at the summit also called for stronger collaboration among governments, security agencies, traditional institutions, the media, and local communities to address insecurity and counter the spread of fake news. For the Billy ADR, Yechenu Sasetu in Abuja.
Still talking about social media platforms in Guinea, access to social media has been restricted for several days, disrupting online communication and business activities across the country. The latest restrictions are not the first of its kind and are already affecting several sectors that depend on digital platforms. For example, the Association of Guinean Bloggers, they have condemned the move, calling for the immediate restoration of access to all social media platforms. Abdullahi Hassan has more in this report.
In Guinea, access to social media has been disrupted for the past 4 days following new restrictions on several platforms. The Association of Guinean Bloggers says its investigations point to the targeted blocking of multiple social media platforms. The group's president, Baro Condé, has condemned the move.
Connectivity tests carried out on Tuesday confirmed that access to certain social media platforms has been deliberately restricted. Nothing justifies these restrictions. If there is a justification, it should be communicated transparently. The authorities should publicly explain why they have decided to restrict or limit access to social media platforms, because access to these platforms is a fundamental right. Restricting that access therefore amounts to an infringement on our fundamental rights and freedoms.
Responding to criticism, government spokesperson Usman Gao Jallo said authorities are introducing new regulations to better oversee young people's use of social media in the country.
I am not aware of any exceptional measure making such restrictions mandatory. However, what is important is that our internet space needs regulation. We are all witnessing the excesses and abuses taking place on social media, and there is a need to bring greater responsibility and order to these platforms. Whenever we say this, people assume we are opposed to freedom, but that is not the case. We are simply recognizing that certain harmful practices on social media require an appropriate level of regulation. That is essential.
Meanwhile, civil society organizations have petitioned Prime Minister Amadou Riba, calling for the restrictions to be lifted. They argue the measures are disrupting online activities and represent another violation of Guineans' fundamental rights.
A report by WADR's Conakry correspondent Cherno Alpha Ibrahim Abaldi, presented by Abdullahi Hassan. Now, Senegal has adopted a new 10-year strategy to overhaul its health sector, with authorities pledging reform to improve healthcare delivery, strengthen disease prevention, and reduce the country's dependence on imported medicines. The plan, estimated at more than 6.6 trillion CFA franc, approximately $11.5 billion, is being presented as a roadmap towards universal health coverage and a more resilient healthcare system, especially in rural Senegal. Augustine Colley reports.
While Senegal has made significant progress in healthcare over the past decade, authorities acknowledge that major disparities persist. Health services remain heavily concentrated along the Dakar, Thiès, Jobel corridor, leaving many rural and remote communities with limited access to specialized care. Health Minister Dr. Ibrahim Assi says the new strategy is designed to address these structural challenges through 5 key priorities.
The strategy is built around 5 major priorities. First, modernizing governance with a focus on performance and full digitalization. Second, improving health financing. Third, prioritizing disease prevention and health promotion. Fourth, expanding access to quality health care tailored to the needs of our population. And finally, achieving greater health sovereignty. The estimated cost of implementing this 10-year action plan is 6.6 trillion CFA francs.
The government estimates that implementing the strategy will require 6.661 trillion CFA francs over the next 10 years, making it one of Senegal's most ambitious public sector reform programs. The World Health Organization has welcomed the initiative. WHO resident representative in Senegal, Dr. Yao Ndat Konda Michael, said the strategy reflects international priorities for strengthening health systems.
These priorities are fully aligned with international efforts to strengthen health systems and reflect Senegal's commitments at both the regional and global levels. Through this strategy, the country is entering a new phase in the development of its healthcare system.
Officials hope the reforms will not only improve healthcare delivery across the country, but also reduce regional inequalities and move Senegal closer to achieving universal health coverage.
Augustine Colley filed that report. You're listening to Newslink live on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM in Dakar, Senegal, around the world at wadr.org. We're also live on Facebook and on YouTube. Here's a recap of our top stories. Ghana's government endorses major constitutional reform proposals, including a longer presidential term. Benin establishes a 105-member Senate comprising former heads of state to foster peace and social cohesion. Mali unveils new presidential aircraft nearly 2 years after militant attack. And just gone by, Senegal adopts $11 billion health reform plan to expand universal health care. Still ahead in the news, WADR examines the rising human trafficking threat across West Africa on World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. And we also have press review and guest interview, also sports news. Do stay with us.
Connecting Ghana to West Africa. This is Nadidi Tete in Accra, and you're listening to WADR 94.9 FM, Dakar.
Thank you for your continued time. Now, authorities in Niger have received a report on the national consultations on the financing of the long-delayed Kandaji Dam project. The document handed over to Prime Minister Ali Mahmoud Lamine Zain in Niamey outlined 3 key proposals designed to secure funding needed to make the hydroelectric project fully operational. For more on this, let's hear from Christopher Ticho.
The Kandaji Dam, one of Niger's most ambitious infrastructure projects, has remained unfinished since it was first proposed shortly after the country's independence in 1960. Located in the Tillaberi region in western Niger, the hydroelectric project has faced decades of delays, despite repeated commitments by successive governments to complete it. Now, the country's military-led authorities are stepping efforts to secure the financing needed to bring the long-delayed project to completion. At a national forum in Niamey, bringing together key stakeholders, participants proposed 3 financing options for the government. Among the proposed options, civil society groups say they already have a preferred approach, arguing it would best protect the country's interests while ensuring the project's success. If fully completed, the Kandaji Dam is expected to significantly boost Niger's electricity generation, strengthen energy security, and expand irrigation, providing a major boost to agricultural production and the country's broader economic development.
Yakuba Habibulaye's report voiced by Christopher Ticho. Now, across West Africa, thousands of people are trafficked every year for forced labor, sexual exploitation, domestic servitude, forced begging, and child exploitation. The victims are often recruited through false promises of jobs, education, or a better life, being exploited in destination countries. According to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, human trafficking remains one of the region's most persistent human rights and security challenges, with women and children accounting for the overwhelming majority of victims. In commemorating the 2026 World Human Trafficking in Persons themed Trapped Behind the Scam, Executive Director for UNODC, Monica Juma, is calling for collective action to end this multi-billion-dollar industry.
It is estimated that more than 220,000 victims have been trafficked into this scam industry in Southeast Asia alone. Once trapped, they are subjected to threats, abuse, and in many cases, extreme violence, while being forced to scam millions of innocent people worldwide. These activities generate billions of dollars in illicit profits, which go on to fuel corruption and money laundering. And with the use of modern technology and artificial intelligence, criminal networks now operate with ease across borders and throughout the digital realm. What began in Southeast Asia has spread to Africa, Europe, Latin America, and beyond, creating a truly global security threat. At United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, we are uniquely positioned to support that response. We are training criminal justice actors and frontline responders to investigate and prosecute this crime. We are carrying out research to identify evolving trends through our global report on trafficking in persons. And we are using our convening power to connect governments, tech companies, the private sectors, civil society, and survivors.
You heard them, Monica Juma, Executive Director of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime.
Politics,
Analyses on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Of course, now as Africa becomes increasingly central to the global demand for critical minerals, questions around governance, transparency, and conflict prevention are gaining greater attention. The Open Society Foundations convened a regional high-level conference in Accra to discuss how the continent can manage its mineral wealth responsibly and ensure that communities benefit from these resources. To discuss the key outcomes of this conference, WADR has been speaking to Temfu Mbu, the program officer at the Open Society Foundations.
The first key message is that our resources of the subsoil are not riches in themselves. It is what we do with them that transforms them into a resource for prosperity. And so far, Africa has not done a good job at that. And one of the consensus from this conference is that that's a situation that needs to stop. We need to move beyond extraction and transform the natural resources into prosperity.
One of the fundamental points of this conference was to highlight the issue of governance. Have we been able to make headway with regard to governance?
It's one of the key themes that run through the whole conference, that if we don't get governance right on this continent, then our resources will remain a curse. I gave the example of Cameroon, where the lack of a transparent governance system for gold exports has led the country to lose over $3 billion in a period of 4 years. So one of the things that the conference really emphasized, it's to remind all of us that governance, transparency, and accountability is what's going to help us better manage those natural resources for shared prosperity.
It's interesting you make the point about the conference emphasizing the issue of governance. Did you secure any commitments at all?
In the nature of conferences, we are making policy proposals. We are not implementers. We are not the policy actors who are supposed to put this in effect. But what we are trying to do here is to build a collective consciousness about the need for us to reinforce governance around the management of mineral resources. Obviously, it's left to the policymakers now, it's left to the individual countries. I don't think there's any country that accepts its situation of poverty and underdevelopment. All countries are trying to develop. We are saying good governance is a pathway towards that development, especially when it comes to the issue of minerals. I think one of the things that we have perennially missed on this continent is the exercise of our agency. We talk about lack of capacity a lot in terms of transforming our mineral wealth into shared prosperity. But I believe it's because we've not been imaginative enough. We've not exercised our agency enough. And I'm not naive to the geopolitical context I am not naive to the power imbalances and the exploitative international economic systems that have been put in place. But we've also seen that on this same continent, the countries that have effectively exercised their agency are making a lot out of their natural wealth. The defining factor, again, I come back to the issue of governance, the issue of corruption. And I keep coming back to the case of Cameroon. If a country can leak 44 tons of gold unaccounted in 4 years, what's left? It's a matter of transparency and accountability. It's a matter of foresight. It's a matter of exercising your agency as a state for shared prosperity. I don't think we are doing that enough. I don't think we're imaginative enough in that regard. The geopolitical context will always be there. But within that, there are many countries that manage to maneuver through it.
You heard there Tem Fumbu. He is the program officer at the Open Society Foundations. Let's now bring you some sports news. The 2026 Women Africa Cup of Nations continues in Morocco today, with Senegal taking on Kenya in a crucial Group A encounter. Both sides are looking to revive their campaigns after opening round defeats, making victory essential to their hopes of reaching the knockout stage. In East Africa, preparations continue for the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations, with CAF expressing confidence that co-hosts Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda will deliver a successful tournament despite ongoing work on stadiums and infrastructure. Let's bring you some more exciting news, because at the 2026 Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, South African swimming star Chad de Clos has become the most decorated athlete in Commonwealth Game history. The 34-year-old claimed his 21st career medal after helping South Africa secure bronze in the men's 4x100-meter medley relay, surpassing the previous record held by Australia's Emma McKeown. And finally, FIFA President Gianni Infantino has given the World Football governing bodies 211 member associations until September 19 to accept a one-time offer of $20 million as part of a controversial plan to sell stakes in the future World Cup-related investments to private investors. And we have come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you so much for your time and for listening. My name is Atiewin Imbila. Let's keep the conversation going on all our social media platforms, X, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at WADR English. Have a wonderful evening.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi.